Welcome to Scary Town Stories. This happened 2 summers ago in northern Minnesota. I was camping with my girlfriend at the time, Julia, and our mutual friend, Nate. We'd all been stuck working nonstop. We took a long weekend to unplug, unwind. Julia found this spot near a remote lake. Not supposed to be any cell service. We were about 6 miles off the trail. You had to hike in with everything on your back. It was beautiful, totally isolated. The lake was glass and still. No boats, no cabins, no other people. Just trees and water and silence. When we woke up on the second day, something was different. It started small. On the first night, we'd packed out all of our food into the bear canisters and stashed them away from the camp. But the next morning, Nate swore one of the canisters was further away than he'd had left it the night before. Not by a lot. Maybe 20 feet, but it was sitting in the middle of a clearing instead of next to the tree line. We figured maybe it had rolled downhill. No big deal, it was still there. But then, that night, Julia's flashlight disappeared. She swears she put it in the side pocket of her backpack before bed. We searched everywhere, pulled apart the tent, checked through the food bags, nothing. She borrowed mine and tried to laugh it off, but she seemed kind of rattled. The next morning my camp stove was missing, gone from where I'd left it, right next to the cooking setup. That's not something that you just misplace. Everybody seemed kind of quiet that morning. Nate checked for tracks. Nothing. No drag marks. No disturbed ground. It was just missing. We started keeping everything inside the tents from that point. Even stuff we'd usually leave out. We strung a tarp up just to give ourselves a little more cover. That third night, I'm not sure any of us slept well. At one point around 2 a.m. I heard someone unzip their tent and step out. Figured it was Julia, but then I whispered her name. She didn't answer. I peeked out. I called again. No one answered. But I had heard someone unzip the tent. Someone had moved around, I was sure about it. Julia was sitting right next to me in the tent, sleeping. I stayed up the rest of the night with the knife in my sleeping bag, just listening. When the sun came up, Nate's backpack was gone. It wasn't like it was rummaged through. His boots were gone too. We searched the entire area, the tree line, the trail, the lake. Nothing. No signs of his pack. It was in his tent. That was it. We packed things up immediately. We just left, hiked out as fast as we could. No one really said much about it on the way back. We reported it at the nearest ranger station when we got back. They made a note, but said no bears had been active in the area. No recent visitors either. 2 days later, Julia texted me a photo. It was her missing flashlight, sitting on the porch of her apartment building. She lived in the city. No one we camped with knew where she lived, besides me. There wasn't a note, there wasn't a message, just the flashlight. This happened in 2021, early spring. A few friends and I were doing a 3-day backpacking trip through a section of the forest in Pennsylvania. Not super deep wilderness, but remote enough that we didn't have service and didn't really expect to see anyone. There were 4 of us, me, my buddy Travis, and 2 others, Lena and Mark. Travis knew them. All of us had some experience camping or hiking, but again, nothing extreme. On day number 2, we decided to take a little detour from the main trail and follow an old fire road Travis had marked on his GPS. He said it cut through a section of the forest that had been decommissioned years ago. No maintenance, no traffic, just the woods. We hiked maybe 4 miles in. We hadn't seen anyone at all in the last 2 days. But around that point, something started to feel different. The deeper we went in, the quieter it seemed to get. You expect some silence when you're out there, sure, no one's around. But this just felt like a noticeable absence of noise. No birds, no insects buzzing, not even really the wind in the trees. That's when Lena pointed out something carved into the tree. It looked like a rough circle with jagged lines branching from it, maybe like crude antlers or bent limbs. They weren't initials, not random scratches either. Something was deliberate about them. I kind of shrugged them off at first and figured it was just, people in the woods, young kids, I don't know. By the time we found the 3rd symbol, though, everybody in the group started to look at each other a little differently. Then came the 4th and the 5th, and that's when we started joking about it. Then we found one made out of sticks, tied together, hanging from a low branch, the same shapes as the carvings. If you've ever seen Blair Witch, think that. It didn't really look new either. It looked weathered, and the moss was clinging to the twine. It swayed a little bit, but when I stopped to look at it, the forest seemed to go silent again. Lena said we should turn back. Travis kept wanting to push on. He swore there was some kind of clearing ahead where we could set up camp. We kept going, even though every one of us was getting that weird feeling. Everybody kind of stopped talking. We just kind of walked. Then we came to a stump. The tree had been cleanly cut, maybe 2 feet off the ground, and on top of it were dozens of small stick figures. Each one was different in some kind of way, some with tiny stones for eyes, some with what looked like twine for hair or different things tied around them. And they were all facing the same direction, like they were looking at something. They were facing the trail. Nobody said anything. We just turned around. After we made a few miles between the place, we set up camp near a stream We barely spoke. We didn't even light a fire that night, just went to bed early. The next morning when we got up, we made our way back to cell service as soon as possible. When we finally got back to cell service, Travis rechecked his map to see what was up with that fire road that we had followed. It wasn't on any of the maps, not topographical, not satellite, not even the USGS records. He still had the GPS log showing we'd walked it, with the timestamps, the elevations, everything. But the road wasn't there on the map. We've never gone hiking as a group since. No one said that they didn't want to go back. Nobody just invited anybody ever again. I've worked for the Forest Service going on 17 years now. Started out in Idaho, transferred to Washington about a decade ago. I've done everything from fire lookouts to wildlife tracking to search and rescue. You see weird things in this line of work. People hallucinating from dehydration, families who swear their campsites moved overnight, even the occasional Bigfoot hoax. But there's one call I got back in 2019, right before the pandemic, that still bothers me. Mostly because it just didn't make sense. We got a call around 8:30 p.m. from a kid's father who was camping with his son. The kid was 11. They were at an established site about 4 miles out from the main trailhead. The dad said his son had walked off maybe 50 yards from the camp to gather some dry wood, and he never came back. Now, people get turned around all the time. We've had kids wander off, even just 20 feet from the camp, and miss the trail back. Dense woods can do that kind of thing. But this kid had a whistle. He had a flashlight. He was wearing a bright yellow shirt, and it was still early enough to be seen. By the time we hiked in, it was almost 10 p.m. We called out, used spotlights, ran the perimeter. Nothing. By 2 a.m. we had a full team on site, dogs, drones, thermals. The dogs picked up something for maybe 100 feet heading north. Then, nothing. The trail just stops, like the scent disappears. The weirdest part, about 40 minutes into the search, one of the volunteers found the kid's flashlight, placed carefully on a rock, beam pointing uphill. It wasn't dropped. It was placed. But there were no tracks past that point, and no other items were found. Over the next 3 days, we covered a 10-mile radius. The terrain wasn't easy, but it wasn't impassable. And the kid was 11. He wasn't new to outdoors. According to his dad, they'd done this stuff before. In the end, we didn't really find anything. No body, no clothes, no real evidence. It was just like he wasn't in the woods anymore. The official report logged in as missing, presumed lost due to misadventure. But all the rangers really didn't buy that. Because here's the part that's really odd. On day 2, around dusk, a member of the team swore she heard a child's voice about a quarter mile from the search grid, not yelling, just talking, like he was having a conversation with someone. She called out, moved towards it, but the voice stopped. She said she'd bet money she heard a second voice too, but no one else could confirm it. I've been part of successful rescues before, and I've seen some real tragic endings, but this one doesn't have an ending really. There is no closure. It's like the woods just disappeared him. I've done the same hiking trip almost every fall for the last 7 years. It's a 3-day loop in northern Washington, mostly forested ridges with a few decent water spots. Nothing extreme. Remote, yeah, but not too technical. Usually I go with my buddy Kyle. We met in college. He's the one who really got me into this backcountry hiking stuff. He's kind of a gear nerd, super methodical. Last October we did the same trip, same route, same place. We hiked in about 10 miles the first day and made camp near a little creek we stayed before. Nothing unusual. Weather was cold but clear. That night, Kyle was a little jumpy. I noticed he kept scanning the tree line after dark. At one point, he said something like, "Doesn't it feel like somebody's out there?" I said it was probably an animal or the wind. I didn't really think much about it. People get in their heads out there sometimes, especially in the silence. Sometime after midnight, I woke up and realized Kyle wasn't in the tent. I got up, figured maybe he'd gone to relieve himself. He was standing maybe 30-40 feet from the tent, no headlamp, not moving, just staring out into the dark. I asked if he was all right, and he kind of flinched and said, "Yeah, just couldn't sleep." He came back in and we both went back to bed. In the morning I brought it up again, more as a joke. I said something like, "Sleepwalking last night?" And he laughed it off, but he seemed off that day, distracted, like he wasn't quite all there. Around midday we stopped for lunch. Kyle said he needed to go take a leak and walked off a little bit. I expected him back in a few minutes. 10 minutes went by, then 15. That's when I started to get worried. I called out. Nothing. I went to look. No sign. I hiked in a wide circle around the area for almost 2 hours. No tracks. No movement. Nothing. Eventually I hiked back out and reported it to the ranger station. Search and rescue was out there within a day. I joined one of the search teams for 2 days. We didn't find anything. When we couldn't find anything, Kyle's sister realized she could pull his GPS activity from his smartwatch. It showed movement for a few hours after he left our lunch spot. Then it stopped pinging entirely. The last location was about 1.6 miles from where we were, downhill in dense woods. That area had already been searched twice. The assumption is that he got turned around, maybe slipped, or had an accident. It happens, I guess. But Kyle was experienced. He had gear, food, a compass. We weren't off trail. He wasn't in a new area. I think that's what gets me. Not that he vanished, but how quickly it all happened. One moment he's there, the next it's like the woods took him. I've replayed that trip in my head 1,000 times. Wondered if I missed something, a sound, a footprint, some kind of clue. I've gone back to that area twice since, sat at the same creek, walked the same loop. It all feels familiar, except for that spot. I don't really have a theory. I just know that in the space of 5 minutes, someone I knew really well, someone I had been in that woods with for years, disappeared and never came back. I've been in the National Park Service since 2012. Most of my work's been in forested regions, Washington, Oregon, northern Idaho. I don't tell stories for shock value, but every once in a while, something happens that doesn't fit neatly into a report. Something you file away and stop bringing up, because every time you do, people just kind of look at you. This happened to me in 2018, about 30 miles north of a small town in Washington I won't name. I was on a solo survey. I do trail inspections in areas that don't really get a lot of foot traffic. Sometimes I'll go 2-3 days without seeing another person. This was mid-October, cold mornings, dry brush, nothing really out of the ordinary. I was hiking along the ridge that doesn't connect to any popular trail systems. GPS pinged a possible down tree blocking one of the old fire breaks. I bushwhacked a bit off course, trying to loop around a collapsed stretch. That's when I saw it. About 50 feet ahead, in a shallow dip in the terrain, there was a staircase just there. Not like stone steps or natural rock, a full set of wooden stairs with handrails about 12 or 13 steps high, leading to absolutely nothing. No platform, no buildings, nothing. It looked new, like it had never been used. I walked a slow circle around it. The wood was clean, no moss, no rot, not even leaves in the corners of the steps. That's what really threw me off. Out here, everything decays, gets covered, but these steps looked like someone had just installed them last week. I didn't climb them, not because I was scared exactly, just something about it felt off, like I wasn't supposed to touch it. I took a photo, just one. Then I radioed it in, thinking maybe it was part of some weird art project or an illegal hunting blind. Dispatch marked the coordinates and they said they'd send someone from land management. I hiked another 6 miles that day and set up camp. I didn't really sleep great. Not because of the stairs, but more of the feeling. The woods felt heavier, more still. In the morning, I checked my GPS log to put the exact location for the stairs again, but the pin was gone. The timestamp was there, showing I'd stopped for about 10 minutes, but the actual marker, gone. Figured it was some kind of a glitch. It happens sometimes, but that's weird. I ended the loop 2 days later and handed off the coordinates manually at the station. They said they'd check it out when someone had some time. A week passed, I followed up. No one found it. I went back out on my own next month. Hiked the exact same stretch, with the photo pulled up on my phone the whole time. But I found nothing. The same terrain, same dips in the ridge, but no stairs. That photo? Still on my phone. Still shows a perfect little staircase, freestanding, right there, in the woods. I don't show it to people anymore, though. If they believe me, they believe me. If they don't, they think I'm crazy. But I wasn't the first to see something like this. A couple older rangers I worked with just nodded when I told them about it. One of them said, "You ever notice how some places don't want to be explained?" I don't go looking for it anymore, but every time I'm deep in the woods and the wind dies down completely, I get this feeling like I'm standing near something that's still there, even if I can't see it. And sometimes I wonder if it's still waiting for someone to climb it. Thank you for joining us at Scary Town Stories. We appreciate it and hope you enjoyed. Remember to subscribe and leave a comment.